a monster in me that I decided I had to get control of. And that's what I'm doing. And that's what I did. And I gave you every opportunity. And I would give you more opportunity if I thought you would.
You were going to change, yeah.
But you're not, because you just, we're having this conversation. And he's, well, I'm just going to do it. And I like, do what? And he shot himself.
So I am so excited because this is my first podcast of Going 180 as we're creating content. And I'm really excited because I sent this email out to several people that I know that I can trust to be real and raw with me. And so you were one of them. And so I'm really excited to talk about change from the vantage point of you now being a professional, probably on the whole other side of a traumatic event that you've gone through that you and I've talked about. And so now we're going to sit here on the aftermath and talk about it. Now, we're currently in the season of Talk to Me Here, which means we're going to be talking to individuals who have gone through or in the middle of a change or going through a change, whether it be from trauma, whether it be from a circumstance, whether it be from a job change, whether it be from a relationship change, it could be from an addiction, whatever the case may be. And so it runs the gamut, but the theme or the general season of this is called Talk to Me Here. And then this particular episode is really dealing with, why am I here? How did I get here? Okay. So I'm excited to have Lori Woodle with me. We've worked together now for over 2 decades, I think. And I'm excited because she's a professional. She's been with the county, and she'll talk about that for quite some time. But something happened in her life that really changed the trajectory of her life over time. And so that's why she is an individual that I've chosen to have this conversation with. And I'm excited. So welcome, Lori, to Going 180.
Thank you.
So take me back a little bit, because one of the reasons why I want to talk to people while they're here is because the notion is they're actually going through something, whereas you've actually come through it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the biggest traumatic event I think that you and I are going to talk about is when suicide happened in your family. And how old were you when that happened?
I believe I was 38.
38. Okay.
And it was something I did not see coming.
Mm.
I knew I was married. I was married to a man that was very difficult. We'd been married about 13 years. He had a son who was 7 years old. And he was a very difficult man.
What made him difficult?
As I've grown to learn more about him and think about things in retrospect,
mm-hmm.
he never was actually satisfied with who he actually was. He was a fine person. He had
mm-hmm.
many abilities and talents, but he could not just accept who he was and be who he was. He always had to be something different. And I did not know that many of the things that he shared with me and told me about his experiences, his achievements,
mm-hmm.
were lies. How would I know? I wasn't there.
mm-hmm.
You take people at face value
right.
when they say, oh, I graduated from here, or I did
mm-hmm.
this, or And so,
you think he was intimidated by you and he lied because he wanted to impress you?
No, I don't think it was that. I think he was trying to impress just anybody who would listen.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said, he was a person of many talents, but he was not satisfied with his talents that he had. He wasn't satisfied with any of the achievements that he had. He had to create a prior life that was spectacular.
And how long were you married?
13 years. And in that time, he got violent, not physically violent, but could be very verbally and mentally abusive. And I sort of woke up and said, I can't take this anymore. I don't deserve this.
So when you say verbally violent, what type of things would he say?
If he got upset with me about something, he would just cuss me out, call me names. And, I don't want to dwell on that. He did it. And what happened was one day I was listening to my son talk to the dog. And the dog was on his little bicycle out in the backyard, and the dog sort of ran in front of him and cut him off. And my very young son called the dog a fucking bitch. And
where'd you hear that?
I was like, oh my gosh. And I knew where it came from. And then the context that the child said the word, he knew it was correct.
And
correct context. He said it in correct context. And so well, you can't, those are bad words. You don't want to talk to people like that. Well, Dad says it all the time, and not just.
And so he heard his father say those things to you.
To me or to anybody, or about anybody. And it wasn't the wake up call, but it was starting to dial the wake up call. So.
And how old was your son at the time?
It was probably 3.
And he was able to say that in context.
At 3. Yeah.
Did you ever bring it to his dad's attention that he did this?
I did in the moment because he was there. And he was there. I don't know if he actually heard it, but I said, did you hear what he just said? And, so I think he had to sit down, now, son, you don't say things like. My son was very intelligent. Well, you did.
Oh yeah. Kids will do it,
kind of thing, and they'll give it back to you really fast. So that happened, and I began to sort of pocket it away. But I was watching. Now I'm watching. And
you know what? Before you go on, when you say, and because I know women are good at this, we're good at this. I think I don't know, it's a new term. I think it's new, relatively, calling people a narcissist and things of that nature. And when women are with these types of people with behaviors, or when men are with women with this type of behavior, we pocket it away. What does that mean?
I believe for me, it was, I'm going to remember this, but I don't want to have to remember this. Why should I have to remember this? Why is this part of my life now? Why am I, and it's self-questioning, why did this happen? Why did I allow this to happen?
That's it.
And why didn't I stand up for myself in the moment? But you don't forget it. You just don't make an issue of it. So you sort of pocket it away. And over time, that pocket gets full. And it may take years or decades for some individuals, because it's not just women, some men. Just you finally get full. You're full. And when you're full, you're full. And you are overflowing with fear, with depression, with anger, everything, all the negative feelings, you're overflowing with them. And naturally, you got to correct that. You have to change that. You have to 180 that.
Did you ever suggest to him that he go to counseling?
I did. I finally said to him,
because back then, when we were growing up, counseling wasn't a thing.
No.
It's more of a, I'm not saying it's a nuance, but it's more of a resource that is more current than it was when we were growing up in the 80s.
He actually believed that anybody that needed counseling was mentally ill. That's what he believed. And in the 60s, 70s, 80s, that was true.
That was true.
Mentally ill people are the only people that actually went to counseling.
And we didn't call it counseling. We called it psych ward or psycho.
Yeah. And then it turned into therapy, and, and it's just, it's a good thing. I had been to counseling because of something happened to me at work, and my job sent me. This was when EAPs were brand new, and my job sent me, and so I got a lot out of it. So I had a relationship with the counselor, and she had told me, if you ever, need me in your future life, you're probably going to be fine. But if you ever need me, you can come back to me. So I had contacted her and said, I need help with my husband. And so we went to a joint session, and I was very raw. I was very open about what my expectations were to stay in this relationship, or I didn't even use that term at the time. It was to improve this relationship and make our family better. And so he made an appointment, and he went to the next counseling session
by himself.
Yeah, he did. He went, and he came back, and he said, I'm not going to go again. And I said, yeah, you are. Because
you were done.
Yeah, period. So I had given him an ultimatum.
And how many years were you married before this?
This was at the end. This was at the, this was at the end. This was the last couple of months. And I said to him, yes, you are. You're going to go. And if we can't fix this, then I'm done. I'm out. And fixing this doesn't mean me, because it means the family, it means this, and it means you.
Right.
It means all of that together. So you're going, or I'm done, because I'm not raising my child like this.
Was he using anything? Was he addicted to anything? So
he, not necessarily illegal drugs, but I didn't realize that he was smoking, which I didn't necessarily, I didn't really know he was smoking cigarettes.
Okay.
He was a cigarette smoker. And I had said, you got to quit. And so he was smoking cigarettes. He would hide and smoke. He was wearing the patch. So he was really getting a double dose of nicotine. And then he was also, for whatever the reason, taking a lot of antihistamines. So he was kind of like almost
like Benadryl?
Like Sudafed.
Oh, Sudafed.
So he was wired all the time from nicotine and Sudafed. He was driving a truck. He had his own trucking business, and he was driving, and he would drive 18 hours a day. And I think that, and he would drink coffee. So he had
a lot in the caffeine.
I think his brain, I didn't know it at the time, but now I can say his brain was completely poisoned. He was just high all the time, because that's what it was.
You think it was to stay awake, or do you think it was to treat something else?
No, I think it was to stay awake, to work, to be alert. And I think some of it was to watch me. And
to watch you?
To watch me, to kind of, to track where I was. And like, I'm a homebody. I go home and I stay there. I love to have activities and be busy, and I do things at home. And I'm a member of a couple of service clubs, and so I do go out to meetings, occasionally, and this and that.
Sure,
but.
And back then, you really couldn't watch anybody like you can now. Now you have but if you have an Apple app or an Apple Watch, you all can watch it. Unlike me, I have a Droid. So if you have an Apple Watch,
I do. Yeah.
Then you guys, but back then you didn't have those devices.
No, we didn't have those devices.
How was he watching you?
He would drive by my work. And this is an example. One morning I went to work, and I ended up parking on the street in front of the building, because the parking lot was full and there was a space. So I parked on the street in front of the building, and I went in and I went to lunch. And I came back, and the street was full. Oh, there was spaces in the lot. So I pulled into the lot, and I parked there. So he calls me. He would call me 4, 5, 6, 7 times a day. So he calls me and he says, where's your car? And I said, in the parking lot. Like, he goes, well, earlier it was on the street. And I said, well, when I came back from lunch,
I parked
in the lot, because there were, spaces available in the lot. And I thought, why are you driving by? So you drove by before noon, and you drove by afternoon, and you're supposed to be working
and driving.
You told me you were going to go. Why are you driving by to, check up on me? And that's what he did. He checked up on me, and I had no idea the depth that I was being checked up on. I had absolutely no clue that he was.
So instead of showing up and taking you to lunch, instead of bringing you flowers or just doing something that
Or
was
saying, hey, I'm
normal.
coming through town. You want to meet for lunch?
Absolutely. It's more of I'm checking your vehicle and I'm making sure that you're at work. Was he paranoid or was he insecure?
Yes, yeah, always. And about probably 4 years before this event,
Mhm.
I wanted to have the shower door on our master bathroom shower turned around. It was, in my opinion, it was hung on the wrong side and it was awkward and it was getting the wall wet and everything. So I called a glass company in town and I said, I'd like to have you come out and give me a bid to change my shower door around. Of course, he knew I was going to do that. So the guy calls me up and he goes, I have some time. Are you available? And I worked in town. So I said, I can actually be at my house in 10 minutes. So I told my boss, hey, I got to run home for a few minutes, a few minutes. I said, he goes, yeah, fine, go ahead. So I got in my car, drove home, pulled into my driveway. A service truck pulls up in front of my house, the owner of the glass company, and we go in and we go into the master bedroom and I'm sitting on the bathtub edge because it was a big tile bathtub. I'm sitting on the bathtub edge and I showed him and so he's sitting on the toilet with his clipboard. And because he's right in front of the shower door and he had measured and he was doing a little quote. Sure. And I'm sitting over here. We were probably 6 or 7 feet apart. And we're talking about the shower door and just, I'll talk about anything to anybody.
Yeah, that's why we're having that time together.
And all of a sudden, my husband pops in. Like I never heard the front door open. He pops in like he was catching me doing something. And I go, oh, there you are. This is Steve, and he's the glass company guy. He's going to change the shower door. Oh, hey, nice to meet you. And, I thought, how embarrassing, made no noise whatsoever. So that's an example of, he was following me around. Like, and if I was going to bring a man home to
you're going to bring him to your house in your bathroom
and park in the driveway and have his service truck,
So were you his first marriage?
No.
Okay.
No.
So do you know any history about his previous relationship?
His first marriage, he actually married a gal who was gay and couldn't tell her dad. And then they were, I lived the craziest life. So, he,
did he know she was gay?
No, he didn't. He didn't. He was very young. He was in his early 20s.
And think about the time frame of what we're talking about here. 70s. I'm always talking about, time frames and decades now that we're older. Right. Because a lot of what people are experiencing as normalcy now was completely taboo when we were growing up. Right. So that was not heard of back in the 70s or 80s. It was
in the 70s.
In the 70s.
The early 70s.
So that must have been.
He married this gal and they were only married about 5 months.
You think?
And then they got an annulment. And so then he was like off women, so.
I'm not laughing, but did she cheat on him?
No, but he had a girlfriend from high school that he went away to the military and he joined the Navy. He went away to the military, went to Vietnam, and she cheated on him. She, separation of lovers and all that kind of good stuff. And when he came back, she had gotten involved with another man and he never got over. He never, ever, ever got over that. He mourned for her. And
did he tell you this?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So you knew about this?
Oh, yeah. I knew about it. Yeah.
How long did you know him before you married him?
Not long enough. No, not.
No, I'm just saying.
Probably.
Did he tell you this when you were courting or when you were dating, or did you?
Yeah, he did.
Was it a red flag of any sort to you?
No, it wasn't, because to me, I thought, oh my goodness, you poor man, you go away to the military to serve your country, to Vietnam of all places, and when you come back, your girlfriend has found another man to to be with. So for whatever the reason that she did it, I don't know.
It's really, so when we're talking about relationships and things like that, I've noticed a lot that we think that we're having this relationship or we're having this conversation with someone and it seems like, oh, this is wonderful. We're sharing our stories. We're sharing our traumas. We're sharing our experiences. And so as we're sitting there listening to that, and they're saying, and he's saying to you, obviously, I mourned for this individual. I was really hurt by this. And how do you say to someone, or how do you engage in a conversation, or how do you ask the question, are you okay now? Or, are you over it now?
I would never have at that time.
Yeah.
That would never.
We would have never thought to
never
ask that.
Thought, we're talking about something that happened in the early 70s, and right now we're in 1987. So
we assume automatically that since that happened back there, you're telling me this as a point of reference, or you're sharing with this as a point of conversation. But in our mindset, we're never thinking, you're telling me this because it's fresh, or you're telling me this because you're not over it, or you're telling me this because you haven't healed beyond it.
Probably.
Right. Probably. And unfortunately, these are the types of things that we're learning now. Mm-hmm. I'm really grateful that men have become, I don't know when it happened. I don't know if it was the pandemic, but men have become more in tune and comfortable with sharing their feelings, with sharing their trauma and sharing their insecurities and sharing their fears, which in turn we can share ours as well. And then we can all, we can talk and figure out, we all bring a little bit of crazy to a relationship, right? And then we can figure out, is you're crazy enough for me to deal with, and vice versa?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think of it like that.
Match our crazies.
Match our crazies. But in that mode, when somebody's sharing with us, what happened, we're probably thinking, thank you for sharing. And we're probably thinking, wow, this is good. We're becoming more close, or I'm getting closer to him, or I'm more intimate with him. Maybe not realizing that he's sharing something as a warning, maybe.
Yeah. If I had, and that's an excellent way to think about it. Had I thought, oh, he's shooting up red flags at me just to see if I'll stick around. Mm-hmm. I never thought like that. I thought he was just giving me information about his past relationships. So he had the girl who he pined over, who found the other guy. He had the girl who found the other girl. And then he got married. And then he swore off women. And then his mom she worked at a high school. Mm-hmm. And this young woman came to work there, and she had two little girls. Mm. And she was broke, and she worked at the high school, and she would buy fabric through the home economics department to sew clothes for her kids and for herself, like, quick skirts and different things. Wow. And so his mom felt really, really sorry for her, even though she came from a family of money, because she had her first daughter out of wedlock. And then lots of story there. Anyway, so his mom felt really sorry for it. Oh, Greg, take her out to dinner. She's never had steak and lobster. Just take her out to dinner. So he says, I don't want to. And so finally he did. He asked her out on a date. They went out to dinner, and he took her home, and he met the two little girls, and that was pretty much it. He met the two little girls. And he thought, oh my God, these little girls need a family. They need a dad. So but shortly, he married her, and then they had another child. So there were three little girls, and he adopted the other two little girls, even though their dad was sort of around. He had given them up. And this is after his military experience. This is after the first relationship, after the second relationship. Now here's his third relationship. And he obviously has a heart. He obviously cares. Family must be important to him on some level. Yes. And so he takes on this woman with her two children. They have another child. And then his behavior, I learned, as she was very front with me, is like, oh, he's this, he's that, and all these things. And the ex-wife. Yeah. And I just thought it was sour grapes and all that. And she was pretty interested in money. So anyway, she divorced him, and she did fool around on him. So he had reason to be suspicious. So now you've got three relationships. So I was really walking into as a sitting duck, I mean, I'm not laughing. I'm crossing the, And it's not the quantity of how many times he's been in and out of a relationship or marriage. It's the quality of what he experienced while he was in them that you're walking into. Right, which I had no clue. But he's telling you these things. He did,
But it doesn't matter because you're not.
But what he was telling me was about the women.
Okay.
And so I not like that. And so I did not understand the other side of the story. He never told me the other side of the story.
Which
He
would
never
be
mentioned
his
his
behavior.
behavior because
Mhm.
his behavior was perfectly fine.
Of course
And
it
he
is.
didn't do anything wrong. It was perfectly fine.
He's the victim.
Right. He's the victim.
Mhm.
And his mom was a wonderful human being, and
Mhm.
she just took me in and,
Mhm.
oh, I just love you. And she was very kind to me. And I will always cherish that relationship that I had with her.
Mhm.
And of course, the girls were like, "Oh, you're so great." I'm not. I'm really not. And I know that, but
The
daughter, all three of them.
So he was still close to the daughter,
Yeah, he
even
was
after
still-
the relationship ended.
Yeah, because he had adopted the older two.
Hmm.
So then, over time, they turned into teenagers, and they do what they do. So I was close to his daughter, very close to the youngest one, and his mom. And I just, there were moments when I thought I got to get out of this relationship. And then I thought, well, I'm actually the only stable parent that the youngest daughter has, because her mother was squirrely. Anyway.
So how long, what is the distance between the relationship between him with the lady with the two children and the children they had together, and when you and him met?
So I met him in 1986, and he was separated. They got married in 1979.
Oh.
And I think the youngest one was born in 81, and they got divorced in 85. And I met him in 86. So he was already, divorced. And then I didn't see him again for a long time. And then I saw him again in 87. So it was over a year that, I met him, and then I didn't see him, and then I met him again. And then his circumstances had changed. And then we started dating, and then we got married. So
how long did you date before you got married?
Probably about 6 months. It wasn't that long. Yeah, it wasn't that long. But I was in a situation where I was living. I was living in Bakersfield. My family had moved. My mom and dad were from Bakersfield. They moved to San Jose before my sisters and I were born. We were all born in San Jose. Then my mom decided, I don't want to live up here anymore. It's getting too busy. This is 1972. It's too busy up here. It's too much traffic, this and that. So we're going to go back to Bakersfield. So my sisters and I were like, where?
Right.
So anyway,
very big difference.
It was a very big difference. So we moved back there. And after I got out of high school, I always knew I wanted to come back up to the Bay Area.
Right.
I always knew. So here's a man that I met that is actually taking a job with the state of California, and his territory where he's going to work is Monterey County. And so we moved to Hollister, and I couldn't have been happier to get back to the Bay Area, back to kind of my roots where I'm more comfortable, more familiar. So that was honestly a real key element for me. It was kind of getting moved. Yeah, that was a key element for me.
And what did he do for a living?
He worked for the state of California. He was a code compliance officer. And he did for housing for the. It's funny. I work for housing and community development.
Yeah, you do.
He worked for the state of California Housing and Community Development.
Really? So what did you do back then?
I was a bookkeeper.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've been in accounting and bookkeeping my whole life for the most part. So
you all were doing pretty good financially. You weren't.
Well, coming up here was more expensive, but I got a job, and he had a job with the state, and so it was fine. I loved it. I loved being here. He spent a lot of time in Monterey County, and when I got a job up near Watsonville and up at a nursery up in the mountains, and we would come down to Salinas to meet for dinner, go to the movies, go home. I mean, it was
in the course you were married then?
We were married.
You're married.
We were married. Yeah, we got married in April. What the heck year was it? 88.
And so how were the first 6 months or a year of marriage?
It was fine. We spent a lot of time going back and forth to Bakersfield because he didn't want to lose connections with his kids.
So the girls were still there.
They were still there, and his mom was there, and so we would go back and forth constantly. Almost every other weekend, sometimes 2-3 weekends a month. We would go down there for school activities, for Yeah, just, kid activities.
And you didn't have any children at the time.
No, it was easy. It was actually easy.
Mm-hmm.
We leave on Friday night after work, get down there and come back late Sunday night. And, I do all my laundry on Thursday, be ready to go, come back, go to work.
Okay.
It worked fine,
So what changed? Do you think?
When
did he start watching you? I mean, as you say.
Well, I think he was actually watching me in the beginning, and I just didn't catch on. I thought he was more just wanted to be with me. I thought he was more caring and it was that way. I don't mean to say that it wasn't, but it was. But
you didn't feel like he was spying. You felt he was.
I didn't feel like he was spying on me.
When did it turn?
Probably when I started to really develop into my own person as I was, getting more into my 30s. I was more comfortable in my career. I actually went to work for an insurance company, and I was meeting a lot of different people. I was no longer confined to an office where I was only with 5 or 6 or 7 people at a time or in a day or ever. And I was meeting a lot of people, and I just became more popular in town because Hollister is a very small town. And, when so-and-so, so-and-so, and you go to the movies, you go out to dinner, you go to the grocery store.
You run into the same people.
You run into the same people. Oh, hi, how you doing? And who's that? Who's that? Who's that? And it's not always women that you run into. Sometimes there's, older gentlemen that they're just nice gentlemen. And, how you doing, honey? Nice to see,
Yeah.
This guy's 80 years old. He's calling me honey, and you're jealous?
So when did you first notice that he was becoming kind of jealous?
Probably been married a couple of years. It was like, that's kind of ridiculous. And so I would get a little, PO'd about it.
Was he a lot older than you?
Yeah, I was 14 years older.
Okay.
So, but I don't know I don't think that was why.
You don't think that?
I don't think that was why, because actually he really didn't look that much, he looked good for his age. I don't.
So after you're traveling back and forth to see the daughters. You don't have any children yet. You've been married now for a while. You get pregnant by choice.
No, I had no idea.
Okay.
It was out of the blue.
Okay.
It was out of the blue. I really wasn't expecting that.
Did you want to have children?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't.
Why?
I just wanted to be selfish and
okay.
I just wanted to. I'm a middle child. I'm 13 months younger than my older sister, and I'm 7 years older than my younger sister. So I'm a middle child. I took care of my younger sister a lot. I was the one that my mom always relied on to do housework, to do the dishes, to be home after school, to take care of my younger sister. I was the dependable one. And I didn't want to be dependable. I didn't want to be dependable.
Yeah. So, okay. So you get pregnant. And so you, how was he happy?
Oh yeah. And we didn't know if it was a boy or a girl. And I didn't want to know if it was a boy or a girl because I didn't want a girl.
Because you had 3.
I didn't want a girl because he had 3, and I didn't want any comparisons. I didn't want any. My mother-in-law she was a wonderful lady, and I loved her. I still do. She's gone, but she would compare. She would compare anything to anything. That was just, that's really interesting because I had that, or so-and-so had it. And I didn't want a comparison at all. So I didn't want to know. So when he was born and he was a boy, I was so relieved. And, in the moment, it wouldn't have mattered.
Right.
But I didn't
I understand why.
up to that point. So it was a boy. It was great. I was relieved, and never knew I was never going to have to hear a comparison.
Was he excited about having?
Oh yeah, he was thrilled about having a boy, and he insisted that he have the same name as him. And I said, no, you can't do that. And that was a long months of conversation about what are we going to name, a boy or a girl. Well, I want it named after me. No, I'm not doing that. Well, guess what?
Is he a junior?
No, he's the second.
Listen.
He didn't want him to be a junior, but he wanted him to be the second. So
Okay.
he's the first and the second. And then I said, okay, so my son is actually having a boy in January. And I said, don't make him the third, please. And he goes, I'm not going to do that. And I said, okay, thank you. So yeah, so basically he wanted him to have, and ironically enough, as much as I fought that, when my son started kindergarten, almost every boy that he started kindergarten with had his dad's name.
Well, that was very popular.
It was very popular for a short amount of
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And so, and my son's right in that. So
You
he's
know, in
trendy.
society, but there was a lot of that.
Yeah, there
a lot
was,
of juniors and
yeah.
you know.
So yeah,
I guess that was some kind of a.
It was just a thing, I
Just a
guess.
thing, yeah.
Just a thing that happened. I fell into by accident.
That's
But
wait a minute. Say that you fell into your accident.
no, fell into it by accident.
Oh, you fell into it by accident.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, fell into it by accident.
So the son is born, and you said at 3 is when the son started repeating things that he said to you. So is that when he started becoming verbally abusive after you had your son?
No, there were times
When he would just
one time we were driving somewhere and he was yelling at me about something. I don't even remember what he was yelling at me about, but I'm like just stressed out, and we're driving. We're on like a San Jose freeway, and I'm driving, and I wasn't really listening to him. I was like trying to just tone it out so that he would just stop. And he hit the dashboard of the car so hard that it scared me, and I jumped because he wanted me to understand that, what he was saying. You're not listening, and I'm like, I'm really not, because I'm trying to not. But I listened after that, and then another time
You listened after that.
I listened after that because yeah, because don't hit the dashboard when I'm driving. That's just cruel. And then another time we were driving, and I
so you didn't snatch the car over? And
no, but one time I was gonna turn, and he grabbed the steering wheel, and it was just like, so it was a very, 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 it became more and more of a controlled situation.
Was he white?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
Not that matters. I'm just asking, where is he getting? I mean, because
where did it come from?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like you're like, is it cultural? No, I don't think it was cultural. I think it was just
he just had this aggression.
Yeah,
did he have PTSD?
Probably.
Okay.
Probably he did.
Okay. He was in Vietnam, you said.
He was.
Okay.
Yeah, he was on board an aircraft carrier in Vietnam. He was, and that was another thing where he invented his past. Is he told me that he was a pilot in the Navy, and he was not a pilot in the Navy. He was an aircraft hydraulic mechanic in the Navy, and so he was on board an aircraft carrier because he was a mechanic.
But he wasn't flying the plane.
He was not flying the plane.
But according to him, he was flying the plane.
He was flying the plane.
Where was he flying it? I'm just kidding.
He had stories about how he would, fly over swamps and jungles and shoot, and it was just, and I bought into it. Wow, that's really cool. I'm so glad you made it. But I wasn't there. No one else was there. He could tell whatever story he wanted to.
Well, did his mom ever validate or who ever told you the truth?
His mom never said, that's not true. She never discounted anything that he said, but she did that too. She sort of invented her past as well.
So he learned, it was learned behavior.
I think it was learned behavior. Is that, my mom tells everybody that she had a Studebaker dealership, and she tells everybody that she went to pharmacy school. She tells everybody, and she lived in Southern Illinois at the time, came to California, and who's going to know?
So
who's going to know?
I'm not trying to be funny, but there is a scripture that says, we call those things that are not as though they were. That's not what it meant. Yeah, it's a lying demon, but that's not. When I was growing up, everything was a spirit, a lying spirit. But people fabricate and they create a reality that they want it to be. They create this trash reality that they somehow. I don't know why they do it. I don't know. So.
I think they do it because they want to be better than they really are. But if they really took a good look at who they were, who they are,
and making it up is not going to make
it up is not.
No, it's not going to make it any better. Or
here's another funny story that is not a story. his brother was a correctional officer, and he worked at the Tehachapi prison. And he gave him, I don't know how he acquired a belt buckle that was a sheriff's department belt buckle. I don't know if he won it at a golf tournament. I don't know how the heck he got it, but he gave it to his brother. He gave it to my husband as a gift. Hey, I got this for you. So he would wear it a lot because it was shiny and, it was a sheriff's star and all this kind of stuff. So we went to an event and he was wearing this belt buckle, and he was standing next to a table where this man was sitting, who happened to be the father of one of the other people at the event. And he looks over and he sees the belt buckle. And he goes, "Oh, are you on the job? I'm retired, 35 years, blah, 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 blah."
Your husband?
No. Oh. The man said this to my husband.
Oh, okay.
And he saw the belt buckle.
Oh, he saw the belt buckle.
And he said, and he asked my husband, "Are you on the job? I'm retired, 35 years.
And please."
And he just didn't know what to say, got caught in his reality. And just kind of, yeah. And he just walked off.
Your husband?
Yeah. He just
so in other words, allowing him to believe he was on the job?
Not being able to respond because he knew he couldn't admit, he didn't want to admit that he had never been because he had never been on the job. And he didn't want to say, "Oh, my brother gave it to me." He didn't want to have that conversation and be embarrassed and be diminished in some way in someone else's eyes, which who cares?
Right.
You got a belt buckle. You probably could have bought it at the Goodwill. I don't know.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So we had the belt buckle. So the assumption would be that he was part of the correctional facility or correctional officer, profession, and he actually was not.
He was not, no.
And so when somebody confronted him about it, instead of just saying, "No, my brother gave it to me," he just walked away.
Yeah, he just he didn't know how to get out of this, so he just walked away. And I was sitting there. I was actually seated at the table, and I took on the humiliation. And the man kind of looked at me like,
did I miss something?
Yeah, and I just I didn't know what to say. I think I need another drink. I mean.
I think we all need another drink.
Yeah.
I think my husband's had too many drinks.
Yeah. So, I mean, he could not admit
right.
What the truth was that my brother gave it to me.
Silly.
Okay. So, which is so silly.
So was that the beginning of his lies was that when you first started realizing that something's really wrong with this guy?
That was one of the first times I realized that he can't admit. He's got to put on airs, and he can't admit that, "Oh no, my brother gave this to me," or whatever he wanted to say. "Oh no, I just liked it." Did
he lie to your son?
I'm not aware of any
telling him stories or
significant. No, I don't think so, because I don't think he felt that my son was old enough really to
challenge him or to care.
Or to care. Yeah, or to care.
So your son's 3. Now your son gets a little bit old. Your son cusses at 3. He's repeating the dad. He realizes the dad is calling you the F word or whatever the case may be. So now take me closer to when it came to the end, because, how he got from that and, to the end and then to the point of where he decided to take his own life. How did he get there?
So what happened, there's so many moving parts to this.
Okay.
He went to work. He was working, like I said, he was hauling landscape products for a couple of different companies. And all of a sudden one day he came home and he started talking about the office clerk at this one location. And her name, I can't even remember what her name was. Anyway, and I'm like, after a week or so of hearing her name every day, I'm like, what? And I said, "Well, you would like her?" Or, I threw out some, and he got mad at me.
Of course.
He got mad at me. And but he never quit saying her name. So then on Saturdays, a lot of times he would work and he would take our son to work, because they'd go get the donut, go deliver whatever, and, come back. And it was good. I could, concentrate on things around the house. So, Mom, I met whatever her name was.
There she goes.
And I said, she gave him something. She gave him a toy or something. So I thought, oh, that's nice. And so then I thought, I'm not going to say another word because I know something's up here. I'm just going to wait this out. And so then one day he calls me up and he says, what are you doing for lunch? I'm probably going to go home and empty the dryer, something, because I would do that. And he says, oh, I want you to come. I want you to meet this woman. And I said, I don't need to meet her. He goes, yeah, come on up to San Martin. So you want me to drive from Hollister to San Martin on my lunch hour?
Yeah, that's kind of
and have lunch with you. So so he really, really wanted me to do that. So I'm like, all right, how about tomorrow, whatever. And he goes, yeah, okay, that'll be. I really could now. I still to this day don't really understand
what you need.
Why did I need? Why this is so important? So we go. So I meet him there, and it's a paving stone yard, and we go into the mobile trailer that's there, and it's set up like an office. It's nice. And his body language was so odd to me. It just, he acted so at home there. And he sat down across her desk and she was kind of nervous. And he just, sits back and he crosses his legs and he's reading some work order or something. And he's just, very casual. And I'm sitting there like, why am I here? And I'm just kind of looking at her and she's just sort of like nervous, busy. And I'm thinking, this is really weird.
Strange. Was she older or younger?
No, she was about my age.
Okay.
And he goes, well, okay. He goes, well, let's go have lunch or whatever. And I said, okay, nice to meet you. I don't know why I'm here, but nice to meet you. And bye. And so we went out, and then and I think I drove and we went and got a sandwich or something. I came back, dropped him off, and I went on. I drove back to Hollister, went back,
and that was it.
And that was it. And I thought, what the heck? So I called my friend and I said, what do you think about that? And she goes, well, what do you think about that? And I said, well, you know what I think. And she goes, yeah, I think that, he's having an affair with her. And for whatever reason, he wanted you to meet her, or he wants to have an affair with her. And for whatever reason, he's trying to get you to be friendly with her or something.
That's odd.
It is odd. It's very odd. But, that was probably 2 or 3 months before he committed suicide that happened. So he
was he having an affair with her?
I think so. And I'll tell you why. My friend, who I had confided this, a lot of stuff in. She knew him and was kind of like, yeah, I think you're right. So she's in the human resources profession. And after he committed suicide, she called me up and she said, I want to tell you something, just because I think you need to know. And I said, what? And she said, well, that girl that worked at that place, her mom's in human resources. And so I know her mom through a coalition. And we were having a lunch meeting, and she was talking about how she had missed a couple of important events that were, HR training related, because her daughter was so distraught because a very dear friend of hers had committed suicide. And I said, okay, like distraught to the point where she couldn't get up out of bed, and
and you weren't having those. I'm not saying you weren't upset, but you.
Not like that. So it led me to believe that. I mean, you've lost friends for a variety of things, illness, accident, whatever. I've lost friends. I never spent 2 weeks in bed.
No.
Be so distraught that I couldn't raise my head over someone's death. It's horrible.
Over somebody else's husband.
Shocking. It's, whether it was a coworker, whether it was someone through church or your neighborhood or your, a parent of your kids' friends or whatever. We all have those experiences. Right. And it's sad, and you cry and you mourn, but not like that. No. That's a whole other level of mourning. And So I said, okay. So as I was cleaning out his office and just trying to go through things, I found this manila envelope. And in the manila envelope were some suggestive magazines with some Post-it notes. So I was like, okay, I don't need to know anymore. I know they were just, suggestive Post-it notes
With her?
from her. She had gotten some pornography.
Okay.
And putting some Post-it notes suggesting activities
for him and
her. And they were in a manila envelope that I found in his office with a bunch of other papers.
So if you don't mind me asking, what was your sex life like?
Well, I was trying to make it wasn't enjoyable.
At all?
No.
Was it ever?
Yeah, but not in a while. It wasn't enjoyable just because he would like I said, he smoked and he was just wired up all the time. And he would sometimes come home and he would just he would not shower when he got home at night. He'd work all day and he would not shower when he got home at night. So it's kind of like, you know what, you smell like you just, rolled off from underneath a greasy truck.
Then you
so,
want to come on to
and then
they start patting.
And then it's like, well, you don't love me. Well, you're filthy. You smell like oil and grease and diesel.
And then he's want to come home and have sex after that?
Yeah. And it's like, go clean up.
Can you?
What?
I mean, that's my point. Can he do that, please? Why wouldn't he?
Go home. Yeah, right. And even his kids, when, it was like, Dad, why don't you go get a shower?
So he would come home funky, excuse my expression.
No, that's what exactly.
And then want to have
expectations.
And expectations of sex, knowing he hadn't washed. Not only this area, but any area.
Any area.
And I'm not going to look at your face.
It's just, I can't even believe that I lived through that in this life. And I would be like, no.
Could you
take a bath?
But you weren't saying no to the sex. You were saying, could you please clean up and then we can do what we need to do.
Exactly.
But he felt like if I can't come home soiled and not wash.
You don't love me.
You don't love me if you won't let me sleep with you the way that I come home. It's not worth it for me, and you're not worth it for me to clean up for.
Right. But he didn't see it that way.
Well,
because I didn't love him because I wouldn't get in the sheets with him if he hadn't.
Well, why would he get in the sheets without taking a bath?
Because when you take a shower, it wakes you up, and then he wants to go out and go to work. And he says, I get up in the morning and I get my shower and I go out and I go to work.
Yeah, but you worked all day,
right?
And you come home, and then you don't want to take a bath before you get into some sheets. Forget about the sex. You just don't want to get in a shower before you get in the sheets. So feet are dirty, body's nasty, and you smell like oil. And because what did he do for a living?
He was in trucking.
And so you smell like truck and oil. And so he never admitted it. It never came up that he was having an affair. You just,
I put the pieces together. Yeah.
So take me to the day that he committed suicide.
I had told him it's over because
you won't take a bath. I'm just kidding.
Well, because he didn't want to do the counseling.
Right.
He did go the one time, but he came home and said, I'm not going back. And I said, oh, and so he tried to be nice. He says, I'm just going to, he said to himself, he didn't say it to me, I'm just going to be nice. He was the most model citizen you've ever seen in your life for about 2.5 weeks. And then, so I'm supposed to just forgive all the past. And
did he apologize?
No. And so he got mad at me. Well, I've been good to you. I've been nice. I go, for 2 weeks. I said, that does not make a future. I'm.
Did he understand what the issues were?
Well, I explained it. I don't know that he comprehended it.
I know you did.
I explained it. I did. I was very upfront about it. I wasn't for a long time because I just wanted to keep the peace. If my son hadn't been born, all of this would have happened a lot sooner.
I know that's right.
But so I was trying to, keep thinking. But then I knew when I got a job with the county, I did so knowing that that was helping me get more traction and become more independent so that I could leave.
You could leave.
And that, I all of a sudden I was the owner of the health insurance and I was the owner of my pension and, and that was really, and that was a year before.
Right. I don't think that men realize when women have gotten to a place called done, it's when we stop yelling. It's when we stop complaining.
Right.
It's when we stop suggesting. It's when we stop asking. It's when we stop giving ultimatums. It's when we stop caring. And what they don't know is then we go into a mode of exodus, I call it. So we start lining things up. And a lot of times because they're so dismissive or because they're so gone, the man, they don't realize. And these are the differences, I think, between how men and women, end it or walk away. And so the man will walk away and call himself walking away. And I don't know if that was in essence, I'm going to bring you to my concubine, to the lady I'm having an affair with, which was very odd, very weird, and a waste of time. So I'm going to bring you and connect you to them. And maybe for him, that made him feel some type of control, some type of way. She's feeling weird. You know something's wrong. So he sitting back as King Tut and felt some kind of way. At this point now, we're going further into what we call bad. It's plummeting. So now you're at a place where you're in the exodus season. I call that an exodus phase or season. And that's when we're really done. They don't realize we're done. There is still an opportunity for them to salvage the relationship. But while they're not doing that, I'm continuing with my exodus. So I'm getting my new job. I'm lining things up. I'm putting things in place. I might even look for another place. He has no idea. I'm looking at different schools where to put my son. I'm looking at places where I can live without you. And all the while, he's none of the wiser. They have no clue that we're doing this. And because did you love him?
Not then.
Okay.
No, there was no love there at the time. And I had a lot of guilt about that. But
did you care about him?
I cared. Of course I cared. I cared about whether or not he had lunch to go out. I cared about whether or not he had clean clothes. I cared about whether or not he made it home. I cared about it. I cared because I had a child. And I cared because he had a family. And I cared because I just did. But I knew that it was, my wheels are in motion.
I see. The exodus.
And that's exactly my goal. And I didn't know how long it was going to take me to get there.
There it is.
So,
but he's giving you a lot of time.
1 year from almost exactly, 1 year from when I went to work for the county, it all transpired. So I was working for the sheriff's department. So I had a great network. They're truly a family when anything happens to anybody there. I told him that, it's done, it's done. We can coexist in this house, but it's over because you can't make it right. I've given you so many opportunities to make it right. I've given you a roadmap. I've had conversations that you don't want to,
the whole eviction notice,
participate, all of it. And you don't want that. You're ignoring me. So I'm done. And I told him that, and he said, well, I'm just, he basically said to me, I'm just going to go away. I'm never going to come back. You're never going to see me again. I'm like, yeah, whatever, because I didn't think he would ever leave his child. I didn't think he would ever.
Was he close to the son?
Yeah.
Was he affectionate with the son?
Yeah.
Did he hug him?
Yeah, he was good to him.
Did he hug you? So he was still affectionate.
Tried to be, but I was.
But I mean, you were feeling. I know that you were kind of distant.
I would be like, yeah, okay, welcome home.
Right, but he was still functioning.
Yeah, but I'm there. It's cold.
Did you think he felt that?
I don't probably. Probably, but what ended up happening was he left, And he went out to the sod farm where he had his equipment and stuff. And he called. And it was late at night. It was like about 11 o'clock at night. And he's telling me that he's going to, he's going to end it. It's going to be gone. And I go,
What does he mean by that?
He's going to kill himself.
Oh, he told you that?
Yeah. He says, I'm going to end it. I'm tired of this. I'm over it. And I said,
what is he talking about? You and him, or just in general?
Life. I think he's talking actually about life. And I said, well, what about your family? I said, don't you think that, you do have people that actually really care about you? Well, you don't care about me. And I said, it's not that I don't care about you. You don't love me anymore. And I said, you pushed me away, and then it kind of, the floodgates kind of open. And I was just like, you created a monster in me that I decided I had to get control of. And that's what I'm doing. And that's what I did. And I gave you every opportunity. And I would give you more opportunity if I thought you would. You were
going to change, yeah.
But you're not, because you just, we're having this conversation. And he's, well, I'm just going to do it. And I like, do what? And he shot himself.
While you were on the phone?
I was on the phone.
Oh, man, I'm so sorry.
And
I am so sorry.
And I really didn't at the time. I sort of threw the phone. I'm just like, I'm sick of you. I don't want to, and I turned the phone off and I rolled over and went to sleep.
You didn't realize he shot himself?
I really didn't realize it.
Did you hear the gun go off?
So I must have, because 3 or 4 months later, I actually heard it. So my mind protected me from it at the time, but it told me that it was real later.
Oh, wow.
If you or someone you know is struggling with thoughts of suicide or is in crisis, help is available. Contact the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255 or visit suicidepreventionlifeline.org to chat with a crisis counselor 24/7. Your call is free and confidential.